Recording now. Hello everyone, this is SIG Node CI meeting. Today is August 30, 2023. Let's start with the agenda first. Okay. Looks like we don't have any agenda items today, so I'll go ahead. Before we start, anybody has anything they want to talk about? If not, we can jump into the triage.
I had something, but we can do it in a bit.
Sure. Okay,
So let me also add something in agenda, if we can. Sorry, I forgot to add.
you can add it right now. We can talk about it if you want.
Yeah, I was just wondering if anyone has done testing. Okay, so I'll give the scenario of what we observed. So we have certain workload testing for performance testing, and it is a moderate workload, one PostgreSQL pods and some clients communicate each other. And what we are observing is if you try to do stress testing and create the pods in same namespace, you will see more CPU usage per node rather than, let's say, if you have a test case where pods are distributed across multiple namespaces. And I was wondering if anyone else has seen something like this, or do we have a test case like that in upstream CI somewhere?
Can you repeat again? What's the difference?
So let's say if you have a workload, like say there is a pod, this is say PostgreSQL pod, and there's a client. It's a test workload, and the job keeps on creating pods after pods till you reach the capacity. And if you take these pods and deploy only in one single namespace, we observe that it takes per node far a more amount of CPU versus if you, let's say, take these pods and distribute amongst 3-4 namespaces and run the job. So the conclusion that we are seeing is that if you have some set of pods and if you club them together in a single namespace, the per node CPU usage is higher. And the pods are distributed across different nodes, by the way, but somehow that I'm not able to pinpoint what could be taking more CPU. And the CPU usage comes from the kubelet spike, kubelet slice. The spike comes from there. So wondering if there is any known thing here that I'm missing. I actually have something I can show you. Let me share my screen. Disable screen share, host disable, attending screen share. Can you make me host or something?
Yeah, you are co-host now.
Let me stop presenting as well.
Okay, let me try again. All right. So this was a test that we were running, and if you see, if you have so these are different runs on the same cluster, different time. So you create this pod, run on a cluster. So this is a CPU usage per node, and this was a test where all the pods were in the same namespace. But afterwards, we tried to use multiple namespaces, and the CPU usage per node was significantly down here, and the next test as well here. So I'm trying to debug why it takes more CPU here as a part of CI job. Like why is the only difference between this and this is there's a single namespace, all the pods run in single namespace, and here there are multiple namespaces.
So the first run seems to be longer, right? Is it longer?
Not really. If you see 1655 roughly, similar amount of time, but just spike the CPU. This was repeatedly, and all the nodes are spiking. It's not like all the pods got to same node and only that node is spiking. So the individual line is an individual node, and all of the pods are spiking up.
Is it kubelet CPU or overall node CPU?
It's a kubelet CPU. So the spike comes from, like, say, for example, this kubelet cube pod slice. Most of the spike is coming from there. Other parts are like system slices are normal. So that means in this case the cryo are used. So cryo wasn't taking more space, more CPU. It's just this kubelet slice. That means the pods were taking more CPU.
Do you have many secrets, config maps, anything of the sort?
No, nothing. It's just simple. We have something we call node density. Just simple a pod which has a one PostgreSQL, and there's a corresponding client, and this client makes a simple request, and then that's it. It keeps going like that.
Okay. Because there are secrets are per namespace, so I would think that if you have many of them, then iterating may be faster.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe listing takes time per node. I don't know. I just wanted to bring this to attention if someone wants to conduct similar tests. I'll stop sharing.
Yeah, I haven't seen this before. It's an interesting observation.
That's all. Thank you.
Do you know if so this tests churning through pods, so it creates and removes them? I'm just
Oh no,
trying
this so the
before.
pods.
Okay.
Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead. My bad. Sorry.
No, I just saw this like spike, very like tiny spike. Like I wonder if it will continue on. So like in first test, it's like spiked in the middle, but then like goes down quite fast. But in later executions, it's go lower but longer, at least from like just observation.
Oh, it's just so you start. It's a tier up. So we define how many number of max pods we want to run, and it probably reached that, and then while doing testing, someone just started tearing down because it reached that value. And other cases, they might have just kept it running for some time. So you start the pod. You say I want to run say 2,000 pods per node, and you start the test cases, and it starts spawning the pods everywhere. You wait when the number is reached, and then you start manually tearing down, and so if someone manually tear down, it's not a characteristic of a pod usage.
Okay, makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah.
Looks like there's one item in the agenda. Let me share my screen again.
Yeah, hi there. Sorry, that's me. So I
Can
took
you
care of
finish some action items on previous one? So Harshal,
Sorry.
Yeah, do you want to file a bug on that, or like how do you want to proceed? It's interesting to investigate, but I don't think upstream we have any tests to confirm or like replicate this behavior.
Okay, I will follow the upstream test, upstream bug with this and with these findings and see how we get what response we get. Yep.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you. Thank you for bringing it up.
Yeah. Okay. Let me present that. So we have this one. Okay. I've not sent to anything. Mohammed, are you here in the meeting?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
Sorry, I had to step away earlier. But yeah, so I think we talked about this some time ago. But the idea is kind of straightforward. So we define a grid tests. Let's say we want to run a scenario, like our classic conformance scenario that we run on pull requests and on every day. But we want to run it against, let's say, 2 CRIs, 4 operating systems, 2 architectures, right? Today, somebody writes all those jobs out by hand, which is very tedious. And if you want to introduce a new operating system, it kind of gets a bit long. So I wrote a generator in Python that basically does some ginger templating and spits out the tests. So it's ready to be merged. The repo has very old piling, so it's complaining about some linking things. But other than that, the tests are functional. So if you go to files changed and look at the grid, you will see some jobs in there that are very familiar. And the intent is if these go green straight away. I'm planning on deprecating the other jobs that they overlap with. There's jobs for both running on the AWS and GCP.
Okay.
And all these jobs are using kubetest too, by the way. That's another project I'm working on separately. So I really want to get rid of kubetest 1 or that we use to launch tests because I think it's deprecated for some time.
Okay. This is really nice. So does your script generate combinations for both EC2 and GK and
Yeah, so
GCP?
the current images that we use right now is COS, Ubuntu GKE, AL 2023, and then vanilla Ubuntu.
Mhm.
We test against containerd, but I want to expand that to cryo as well. That's going to be at the later date.
Okay, and does it generate jobs for both EC2 and GCP, or is it like each one is
It does.
independent?
Just both. So if
Okay.
you scroll up to the top a little bit, you can see the matrix definition. A little bit down. It's in that build jobs.py file. A little bit down. A bit further down. Further down. A little bit more. There's a big definition there. Yeah. So.
Okay. Ubuntu and Ubuntu R. We might that's another option. We can also try to run we also have COSARM images. We can add it there as well. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I'm
this
gonna
looks
pass on
amazing.
later on, but we don't do a lot of that today, so I'm gonna add that as well.
Yeah, thank you so much for this PR. I'm happy to review it. I'll add it to myself.
Yeah, one thing I'm not a big fan of is that image config thing. It's a bit annoying.
Which one?
So yeah, if you scroll down a little bit, it's back to no, so if you go back to build jobs.py, a second.
Okay.
So this is not strictly related to the generator that I wrote, but in general, so when I created the kubetest2 support for EC2 stuff, it has support for image config definitions where you define like the image that you want, the machine type, and the user data you want to use. But one thing I did do was allow someone to pass all that as flags. So you'd create one job per OS with the flag of the machine type that you want and the user data to launch the instance with. I mean, the good benefit of that is you'd have to have one job per OS, which is really good because you can. It's like right now our conformance tests actually run against what 2 or 3 different OSs per job, so it's a bit tricky to kind of see what's going on. And when it goes red, it goes red. It will go red for both OSs, even though that's not the case. And those are the scenarios there. So those are the current scenarios that the generator is written for.
Yeah, this is amazing. Let me add myself the reviewer. I think Dikshita, are you in the call? You might also be interested in reviewing this.
Yeah, I mean, it's great. I think one feedback I have is we really we need to make sure that we're testing the right permutations. We don't want to test every test on every environment. The idea was to make sure that we have like upstream test needs to cover upstream functionality. So we need to make sure that we covering enough permutations in this sense. So when we have this document with like Dixie wrote about permutations, we wanted to split test grids into like, let's test, like one test grid will be about all the features. And then if anything specific for containerd, we will test containerd. If anything specific for cryo, we will test for cryo. And also we'll have like basic coverage for cryo and containerd. I think this test
I can do that. So that's kind of what COPS does, right? So COPS has different grids for different things that they do, right? So you just adjust the way that Python file looks like and the resulting files.
Yeah, so we'll need to review really carefully like this test grid generation. Like I also haven't seen cgroup v1 and cgroup v2 permutations, and that will be very important.
Kind of there assumes that cgroup v1 is a special scenario and all test cases by default are on cgroup v2.
Oh, that's great. Okay. And yeah, and we also may need to do this extra mapping for previous releases, like what Mike started when every previous release has a separate image config file. So we lock down the image version that we test with release. So it wouldn't be like we don't want to introduce new problems just because image got updated for the previous releases of Kubernetes. So that may be interesting adjustment to this test. So I think
Yeah, we can do that because
Hmm.
let's say, for example, we released Kubernetes 125 with Ubuntu 20.04, right?
Mhm.
During the life cycle of 125 testing, we're not going to try and run Ubuntu 22.04, for example, because we didn't test against that on when it was released. Because that OS has like what 5 years support time, which is much longer than the release window that you need to support 125 for. Yeah, and things like that.
Yeah, because our customers, Kubernetes customers, really appreciate when they have some stable environment and they don't need to chase like if they set up like Kubernetes of specific version and OS of specific version, they can be guaranteed that it will run for some time, and we keep testing for this permutation, and they don't have to update OS just because OS was released and we started testing with new OS. I think.
Oh, I agree. So once the release is cut, whatever OS it was tested against, that's the OS it stays on for the rest of the testing lifecycle.
Okay, so we're on the same page.
It's not documented, but I should probably add that to our file that we wrote.
I think there's only one exception for and this is going to happen for COS for 128. For right now, we're using COS beta, but we plan to move it to stable. But it's going to be the same version. It's just like change the name.
Yeah, I
But
think it's a
I think
timing problem that can be resolved. But
yeah, like individual keys can be like individual with themselves.
okay, yeah, thank you for bringing.
On an unrelated note, does the project have like a defined set of like what it consists of? Like, first, let's tier the operating systems, right? Like, hey, these are public operating systems, vanilla and modified by their vendors, right? Whoever's released it, whether that's Debian or somebody else. The project tests X version against a particular version of Kubernetes. And then we have all these other operating systems that we also test on because vendors who've been very helpful to the project. And you'd use those core OSs as your baseline. In the sense that, for example, you'd use Ubuntu and Rocky Linux as your base conformance OS. And then you would have extra operating system that you test on things like COS and AL 2023, for example.
Yeah, I think I was told that there was some history about trying to do vendor neutral OSs, and some distros were having problems, and nobody cared to look at it. Like, so it was like problems that like distro owners don't have any desire to update it for Kubernetes, and Kubernetes maintainers have different affiliations with different companies, and they would prefer.
Okay.
I mean, they have more levers and incentives to validate Kubernetes on those distros. So that's yeah.
I'm not saying
hear
we
you.
reduce the validation that we do on the current set of OSs that we test. It's just that we consider certain other operating systems as like our baseline. Like, for example, which OS should conformance pass on? Like, I'll be very surprised if I created a Rocky Linux instance today, loaded one of these standard cloud init files that we use, and for some reason the conformance tests were failing. Like, how did that happen? And was there something funny going on in our code base somewhere?
Yeah, conformance test may be fine, but things like graceful termination test, when we rely on what is it like inhibits that we set up, and some OSs has different behavior. It's slightly different, but it was hard. Like, I think there was some bugs in some distros that we discovered, and nobody like it got stuck in this state of bug exists, and nobody
Okay.
looked at it. And some tooling is missing sometimes. So it also I remember another example for graceful termination. Like there was a tooling to send this inhibit signal, and I think on one distro it was missing, and test started failing. So there are cases like that when I agree about conformance, but beyond conformance, some tests may be a little bit too specific, And I'm not sure how much energy we have as community to adjust it.
Okay, that's fine. Are the tests labeled accordingly though? Like, is it marked as like a feature instead of a conformance test?
Yep, that's maybe done.
Okay, cool.
Cool. Yeah,
Yeah, that's fine. Okay.
Yeah, and for this specific PR, I want to review it. I'm trying to understand. I want to merge it fast. So to merge it fast, we may need to limit the scope a little bit. Like it really depends on like how
Yeah,
many
we
changes.
could merge it right now, because this is a clone of what we have today with just different job names.
Okay.
They might go red because I missed something, but the plan is to make them green and then have conversations about other things.
Perfect. Thank you.
We can merge it right now. Most of the jobs look similar to other jobs except running kube testing. And they're testing the same scenarios.
Yeah.
But yeah, it'll probably be like what DIMS did for the pile of EC2 tests that we introduced. Things that were a bit red because we forgot some args and the OS wasn't, not the OS was a bit dodgy, but there was something missing in our scripts to bootstrap the servers.
Okay. Yeah, and also for amount of resources we spend, if you will generate tests for both Google and AWS, we may need to adjust the timeout. So we run it less frequent on both platforms rather than more frequent on one. So that may be an option.
Yeah, that's fine. We can
Yeah.
do that as well. Jobs do allow you to set the
Yeah, we just need to be conscious about what we do.
intervals on the jobs.
Cool, thank you. Dixie, do you have anything to add? Because you've been authoring this document.
Yeah, probably if you could just CC me or add me into the PR as well, I'll take a look. And yeah, how are we deciding on the frequency of when the test should run for each provider?
I'm going to retain the current frequency that we use for these jobs. And our use on AWS is quite low, so I can just run things way more frequently there. This one is a bit off topic here, but one thing we haven't done in Google Cloud is cost optimization. So we could run tests a lot more frequently if we were willing to do things like community use discounts and consolidating on like the E2 machine types. But those conversations have been had separately. This SIG.
Okay. And does that also mean, Sergey, that do you want to modify anything in the guidance document or that stays as is for now?
Then Mohammed, it very aligned to what you wrote. So it's even like created in the same document, right? So let's make sure that we keep generator and document aligned so people will know how to add new tests.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, it looks like that's the only remaining item on the agenda. I'm gonna go through test triage really quickly so we can have some bug trash as well. Look here. So these are serial. This has been failing for a while, if I recall correctly. Bunch of flakiness. Let's see on kubelet. Yeah, these are the same ones from the multinome, I recall. Ubuntu CLI usually. It's swap, I mean. Yeah, it seems like I don't think we have any new failures. TCRI. Region is failing as well for a while. Serial test and cryo as well for failing. This one are okay. Oh, this one's surpassing now. That's great. Yeah, I didn't see any new failures so far, so I guess we're good. Just the usual failures. Let's stop sharing.
Can you do project port as well?
Project board. This one.
I think so.
Not
Yeah,
CI3.
sharing. Need to switch sharing between tabs. Okay.
Okay, yeah, I can trash this one. Okay, not intent.
Hey, this is under active review, and I think it could really help to fix the multi-numa jobs. So, just for you to know.
Well, that's great. It's under review, right?
Yeah. Thank you thanks a lot to the contributor, which is really helping.
Yeah, definitely. Moving. I think you just need an approver now. Oh no,
We didn't looks good to me yet, even though we are very close. So yeah, me and Swati, we are both reviewing. So you can send me or her or both your call. But yeah, we are both on that, and it's very promising. Yes.
No, that's great. Yeah, wonderful. I moved it to the news reviewer then. Let's wait for that.
Okay.
This is related to that as well, right? This topology manager.
Yeah. I think so. So same story.
Okay.
If
I'm
I'm
gonna send
not
you.
reviewing, I will be very soon. And again, you can just send me, or if not, someone didn't assign themselves, then you can assign me or Swati bot. Thanks.
Thank you. Did cost reference to cost with the family. Oh, this is assigned to me. I'll review it later today. Sorry for that. I think there was some minor comments on that. That's it. Okay. Do not merge. Okay.
Yeah, just move it to work in progress or waiting on author, I think. Waiting on author.
Yeah, I think waiting out should be fine.
Yeah, I think it's for sidecar regression.
Okay, the RI resource class missing.
I think it's a product code, so just move it to archive
Yeah, this,
folder.
here it's already in Signal PR. Bumping this is an. Oh yeah, they released a new version. Okay, so this is bumping. I can assign myself on this one.
Once you review, assign to James because James can.
It seems like it already has a review. I mean, I'll add it myself. TCPU set, change for guaranteed path. This doesn't look like a test failure. So they're testing on an older version.
Sorry, I was distracted. Yeah, this one turns out the submitter of the issue is we were discussing and is likely not a bug. So let's see. We keep interacting, but it seems we are moving towards not a bug and configuration issue or local issue or something like that.
I'm gonna remove it from the board because it doesn't look like it's related to the.
Yeah, I can add it back if needed. So yeah, feel free. Thanks.
Thank you. I'll move it small in triage. Let's start with triage.
Seems fine to me.
Restart containers in right order after the pod sandbox change.
This is not a test change, even though it has a little bit of test. So just move it to archive it. It's a regression found in sidecars.
Great. I thought. Yeah, it's gone now. Okay, yeah, board is clean now. Great. Dixit, you want to take over for bug triage? We have 20 minutes, more or less. Should be
Sure.
good enough. Thank you.
Go ahead and share. So we have around 12 bugs right now. The first one, kubectl exec will wait for command's background job to finish when exec to pod on container D. What happened here was when running kubectl exec with container D runtime, the command will be waited until it has completed to return result to the client. For example, kubectl exec pod name -c container name, and then the bash command here will wait for 10 seconds before returning anything to the client terminal.
I
And if
think we saw this issue last time as well. I think there's some discussion now.
yeah, just looking at it. This also happened when upgraded from EKS version to this. Waiting for 6 CLI to give an opinion on this. If you remove ampersand or -it, everything goes well. Ampersand means run the background job. I think this is expected then. Yes, I agree. The one way we can set the expectation for scripts is what you just explained. What was surprising, it works differently before. Oh, I see. Ampersand means run in the background. Container D, the thought process was it will exit. At the same time, if you set -it, it works like SSH. If you exit, Linux will close all the process started by this session. So I think if this runs in the background, then the command would return instantly. But if that's not the case, it will wait for the command to finish. But the problem is it worked differently before and it works differently now. Like it worked differently on Docker and it works differently now on Container D.
So those are container D issues then, right?
Mhm.
You may need to have container D input on that.
Okay.
I'm curious what the behavior with cryo is. If it's just like some artifact is sort of untested and worked one way on Docker, have to work differently on container D.
Mm-hmm. So might want to just try it with cryo as well, but should we move it to another dashboard? Is there a
Yeah, I
way?
think first of all, I don't think it's a bug. It feels like a feature request to align the behavior.
Mm-hmm.
You can do remove bug, remove kind bug and kind feature.
Can you please tell me what the exact thing is?
Remove dash kind bug, yeah, and kind feature.
And feature.
I think that would be fair. And I think we need to maybe ask them to file the same bug in containerd repository. Yeah, perhaps we can document the behavior, document the fact that behavior may differ in our documentation as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do we want to change, like, do we want to have an actionable item here for us to document the,
I think SIG CLI would be best to document this behavior. So if you mention SIG CLI, say like /SIG CLI, and say if you want to update documentation on that.
okay, slash sig and then CLI?
Yeah. On a new line, like I mean, write that commands should be on a separate line. So
My
start
bad.
in separate line. Yeah.
This one. Pods are stuck in not ready after node becomes not ready for a few seconds. So some pods are stuck in not ready status after related node becomes not ready for few seconds, and then it is healthy again. From kube controller manager logs, pods won't be evicted and are still running. Give one pod for example. Update ready status of pod to false. Event occurred. Node VM is healthy again, removing all the taints. The expected behavior is pod should recover and become ready as soon as the node is healthy. Let me see if there are any comments here. This version is end of life. Please use a new and supported version and report back. So we need to wait on the person who reported this, I believe.
Yeah, you can triage as needs information.
Okay. I think my internet is a little slow today. Needs information. Annotation container.app.armor.security.beta.kubernetes.io not documented. Kubernetes uses an annotation, but it is not registered or documented. We do already document an annotation for seccom. Document the annotation in well-known labels annotation contains pages to update. We need to register this annotation if it goes out of use. Triage accepted.
Yep. Sounds
So
legit.
do we have to change anything here? Triaged, right?
Yeah. If anybody interested to take a look, it would be great. So it's up armor, right? I really like to cross-reference enhancement issue for this kind of issue. So whenever somebody will work on enhancement, they will notice that this issue needs to be addressed as well. I can try to look up enhancement really quickly. Post it in the chat.
Should I just add this to the bug?
Yeah, just comment there. X-ray for enhancement or something.
And is anyone interested in taking a look at it? Okay. I think this is the one that is already being worked on. App container is started before init containers could complete on the node reboot.
Yeah, it's
I
actually being worked on because it's a regression that I mentioned already.
Yeah.
So it's already in right column.
Okay. So who's working on this?
Gunjo.
Okay.
It
So
is
this is
a-
in triage then, right? Disable accelerator usage metrics has been removed. The disable accelerator usage metrics feature gate disables metrics collected by the kubelet with a timeline for enabling this feature by default. According to the documentation, the feature gate has already been removed. So the section needs to be updated. Okay. So looks like this is assigned, they have already assigned to themselves. So I'll mark it as triaged then. The next one, evicting pod due to empty dir violation returns as completed. So if a pod is evicted because it violates the empty dir storage limits, your pod will be evicted, but it will be marked as completed. The expectation is the pod should be terminated or failed rather than completed. For a job, the controller will take this pod to be succeeded even though it was evicted. Let me see. I found it curious we don't have a disruption condition for this case. I noticed that there was a condition for disruption and eviction, but eviction due to this I'm missing. Exit code, if the exit code is 0, then indeed it might be related to this, but in this case the exit code was inconsistent. Let me just check what's the last. Is anyone aware of this issue? Doesn't look like.
Is somebody assigned to them already?
No, there is an ongoing conversation. They say that this is a problem within the pod. It shouldn't get a disruption target. Uh,
It feels like a legit issue. Like based on comments, people can
yeah,
reproduce.
yeah, it was a
So,
legit issue.
definitely, let's triage it in. The question is, do we need an assignee and maybe priority on that to understand if it's a regression or not?
You can probably assign it to Kevin. He's on my team, but he's already looking at it.
Okay. Do you know their GitHub handle?
It's Canon 92 with it's on the screen right now. Yeah.
So it still stays here, right then? Because it requires
Yeah, even
triaging.
triage accepted.
Triage accepted. Kubelet restart during intermittent network issues unmounts volumes of running pods. So during a kubelet startup, it checks all volumes against the desired state. One of these steps is get request on the PVC. The API fails due to intermittent network issue. then it's not considered into the operator. So I think there is a call being made to unmount volume, but the expectation is there should never be a call to that particular thing. Let me see. Not completely sure, but at least what I can see is this: the following happens on this. On the host, I can see the following.
I think we can remove SIG node from here for now at least. It's really unclear for me what behavior should be here. Like, should we retry this call? So, yeah, I think SIG storage needs to decide on that first. So you can remove SIG node.
So is it just remove SIG node?
Yeah, and I removed from my board as well.
What's the command for it?
Remove dash SIG node.
Race window between scheduler and device plugin restart in kubelet. So we restart a device plugin frequently as a part of our design. When the device plugin goes down, kubelet marks the devices it was managing as unhealthy, removing it from allocatable and preventing pods from scheduling. However, it keeps the resource and capacity for grace period in hope that the device plugin will come back and scheduled pods can keep running with no disruption. The kube scheduler reads node state and chooses nodes to schedule the pod on based on allocatable resources. If the device plugin restarts between kube scheduler decision and the kubelet tries to start allocating resources for the new pod, then the pod is rejected and enters the fail state. The expectation is pod should either successfully schedule or stay in pending until the device plugin restarts. So is this part of scheduling, SIG scheduling or SIG node? I think what's happening here is when you restart device plugin, um, the pods should stay in pending state.
Yeah, we don't really have this notion of pod admissions that will wait for something to happen. Similarly to like if you try to schedule something and there is no CPU right at this moment, and like even if like kubelet is about to release some CPU, we still would reject this pod. Same, I think, happens with devices. I think Francesco dropped from the call. Sorry, he was here before. He may know more.
So do you want to just keep it as is and then I can follow up with Francesco on Slack?
It feels like behavior by design, because this is how things operate right now. So if you fail pod admissions, then you will be in failed state. I think it's a feature request more than a bug. Can you open the PR that I mentioned, or it's just a issue on separate repository? Like if you scroll all the way down,
Okay.
this oh, it's linked to different to OpenShift. Okay.
Yeah.
So I think they're saying that it's so when the device plugin goes down, the kubelet keeps the resources, keeps reporting them as allocatable for a short period of time. I was just looking at that first link they had, and then kube scheduler schedules a new pod because the node says it has it, but the plugin's still actually not there yet, and then it fails. If
Is
you
it
look at
this or a device plugin just keep getting restarted on node and it's supposed to be allocatable? So they want pod admission to wait till plugin will restart completely.
I guess if it would
The way
zero
I-
out the resources, it should work for the scheduler anyway. But if you click that second link there, yeah,
Yes.
right where you're, yeah, it's talking about once this grace period expires, it will actually delete the resources. So plugin goes down, grace period expires, then the resource stops getting reported unallocated. But in that intermediate time, new pod gets scheduled to the node because it's meets the scheduling requirements, but the resource is actually not there, and then it fails.
Yeah, but my understanding is that they want pod to be kept as pending instead of failing it. So if they wanted for pod to keep being pending, that they wanted to be successfully scheduled later when device is completely restarted. You see this or stay in pending until the device plugin restarts. So I think grace period helps them because it wouldn't flag the node between like having this allocatable, not having this allocatable. It just restarts the device plugin all the time.
Yeah, I guess for currently unscheduled pods, I, think that's I thought that's what they were talking about. It will get a schedule to this node, the resource isn't actually there, and then it fails. And the problem,
I think
and the reason,
resources are there, just the device plugin is down.
yeah,
Restarted.
So is that expected behavior?
So are we on the same page of how we understand the issue? Because
yeah, I think so. Like the plugin's there, but it's actually not running. But
yeah,
unfortunately,
temporarily, yeah.
they're still
So-
reported, so it fails.
So what they want is they want Kubelet to be able to recognize that device plugin is down, so pod admission needs to wait a little bit.
Yeah.
I think it's a feature request then. Yeah. Dixie, did you get it? Like, can you write it in a sentence? Saying that pod admission is not designed to wait.
Designed to wait for the resources, right?
Mhm. So this is working as expected. Maybe they can have like two-tier device plugin. Like one device plugin is just a proxy for another device plugin. I don't know why they need to restart everything. You can repurpose this as a feature request. You can remove kind bug and create kind feature.
And then you said feature or kind feature, right?
Yeah, kind feature. Thank you.
So I was thinking, is that grace period causing more harm than good? But I don't know. It's a little
You
tricky.
still can end up in the same situation, right? There still will be like a small period of time.
I just want to check the time. We have 3 more minutes. So let's go with one more. Kubelet get config map from Kube API server and etcd every time. QPS of config map get request is too high in Kube API server. When there are many config maps in cluster mounted by running pod, the QPS of config map get request will be high, and the request will also need to get config map resource from the etcd instead of being returned from the Kube API server cache. So what did you expect to happen? Do not get config map from etcd, get it from cache of Kube API server. Set this to set kubelet config map and secret chain detection strategy to cache. Set this to this. Create lots of config map. You also fill in at least the Kubernetes version. This was Mike. Do you have context about this? Looks like this is from last week.
Let me see.
Let me see
I
the
think it
log.
was more of a question of why sometimes it goes through directly to the API server instead of retrieving from memory. But honestly, I don't recall that much.
Okay. So they were asked to add the steps, and apparently they did add the steps. This was intentional. So new scheduled pod would sure get the latest content from the API. However, registered pod is called on every sync. Oh, looks like there is already an assignee to this. So I can mark this as triage then. I did see an assignee here. I'll just mark this as triage then.
So just to understand this, they want to reduce the number of requests the kubelet makes to API server and use the cache value of the config map instead of the what value it gets latest from the API server. Is that what you're saying?
From what
Can
I
you
understand,
scroll down to this comment there which says the one below this one, by this person.
this was intentional, so the newly scheduled pod would sure get the latest content from the API. However, the register pod is called on every resync, and the cache-based manager register pod implementation is calling add reference on all the references every time, not just change references.
Okay. Seems like a legit bug then.
Yeah, and there is a PR already opened by this person, by reporter. So you can assign this issue to this person and triage accepted.
So
Fine.
can someone explain, because I couldn't follow?
So
Seems like a legit issue.
Yeah, I
Go ahead,
couldn't
sir.
follow Jordan's comments basically. So what is he saying here?
I was saying we could say it's a legit issue. Yeah,
so
and
he's saying
PR is
that we intentionally, like, there is a cache of config maps, but when we register pod, we try to requery this config map, even though it may already be in cache, and we do it intentionally to get a fresh version. So apparently there is a bug that we call this register pod on every resync, and since we do that, then and we have this logic of obtaining a fresh config map, we query this fresh config map a little bit too often. So we want to minimize number of this. Like we only want to get fresh one when we start a pod, but when we just resync it, we don't need to take a fresh one. So
Okay.
yeah, that's the issue.
Okay. So it
So if
needs
you have
to
multiple pods with the same config map, then each of them will need to query it first and then put it in cache, and then after that take it from cache.
okay. Got it. Yeah. So we are already on time, and that's all then for today. We have 4 untriaged bugs which we can do next week.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye bye, everyone.
You guys.